ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So good to see all of you. In our exploration of Vivekachudamani, the first few sessions that we had, we first pegged what are those 7 main questions that are asked. The seeker in great despair, with great despondency, asks the Guru several questions. What is bondage? Where does it come from? Why is it even persisting? Questions on these kinds of terms, questions that we could never come to independently if it were not to be triggered and sparked by the very Shastra itself. Then we looked specifically one day at what is the bondage, starting from that level. That unless I truly understand that I am bound, I won't understand that I need to be liberated, and there would be no spiritual journey to speak of in the first place. And the first natural question to tackle is, what is this bondage? And we saw that because I am a slave to these wrong identities, this identity of being the body, of the mind, of the intellect. In short, in my case, the identity of being Hari Chaitanya is a lie. Insert name here, it's a lie for each one of us here. What my true identity is lies somewhere far beyond that. That is that viveka, discernment, discretion, discrimination to eventually come to. Now, after looking at what is bondage, we explored the rarity of someone who actually takes advantage of this human birth to understand what a Vedic mindset is. From there, the courage to tackle these vasanas so that they can truly understand what they are. Now, today we'll expand on that a bit. We'll come to what are those prerequisite steps we have to take before we can truly say we've jumped right into Vivekachudamani. So first, what do we look at? Here I have life is beautiful, kind of. What we mean by that very clearly is life is a beautiful endeavor, no doubt. But do I always see that beauty? What is it that bogs me down? What is it that I'm not doing, not taking advantage of, where I find life so difficult to handle? The reason I bring that up is, if everyone was miserable, then I can blame life. And say life is not beautiful, that's why things are like this, I could blame life. But unfortunately, it's a weird way to put it, unfortunately, I do see people who are not miserable. Meaning I'm doing something wrong right here. I was listening to a stand-up comedian recently. He said people go to stores and restaurants and they say, oh, things are so expensive, things are so expensive. If everyone is fighting that, then things are expensive. If I'm only fighting that, that means I have to make more money, I guess, or temper my tastes or something. So, is life beautiful? Yeah, just not for me, I guess. Once I come to that realization, then I say I need some extra help to make life better. Where do I go? What do I look at? And again, Shastra would tell me, it's because I'm not taking advantage of this human birth, not living up to what potentiality I should have. Which then takes us to the first shloka we look at for today. This is the third shloka. I'll just chant it. Durlabham trayamevaitat devanugraha hetukam manushyattvam mumukshutvam mahapurusha samshrayah. 3 beautiful qualities listed right here. Manushyattvam. Manushyattvam is that what is called as manhood. Let's call it courage aligned right here. Where I recognize what are my defects. That's the first part of courage. Second part is resolving to fix these defects, saying I need to improve from here. Third part is going by the right means to do it. Now, growth is uncomfortable. Every single stage of growth is uncomfortable. Am I looking at the long game right here? Or lack of this kind of courage is I stop where I am and I say I can't progress past this stage. there is a despondency, a fear, a reluctance to actually go on and change my life, that can be there. And this can be for a community as well. Which voices win out in a community when it comes to growth? This year, we're celebrating 25 years of Chinmaya Saket, believe it or not. Now, I remember this even as a child. Mid-90s, we're looking for a place, or trying to build a place, looking for attractive land, and it came to the leadership that, okay, we can build a 20,000 square foot space, which is what Saket is today. There were two different sides to this coming from the community. One side said, yeah, let's go ahead and build. The other side said, for use on a Sunday, because all we had was Bal Vihar then. There weren't other activities. It was just Bal Vihar for children. Just to use for an hour and a half or 2 hours on a Sunday, why are we spending so much to build a 20,000 square foot place, was the question. Quite vocally as well. And our leadership at the time, who many of them are still our leaders today, they courageously said, we're not thinking about the next 2 or 3 years. We're thinking 20 years down the line, when you look at the Hindu population in this city, how can we serve them then? And if we don't take advantage and get this tract of land and build this building now, we won't be able to do it at that time. We need to think for the future. So having a growth mindset as a community is uncomfortable. That $3 million loan that they had to, that was something that made us all uncomfortable for a decade or so, but that was necessary for what we have now. So whether as an individual or a community, growth mindset comes with courage. Growth mindset comes with understanding there will be discomfort every step of the way. That's manushyatvam. Mumukshutvam, burning desire for liberation. I like to use the word yearning for liberation, not desire. I'll tell you why. There's a common question I get this question probably once a month. Mostly from younger seekers, mainly in our Devi groups and study groups. Everywhere I get this question. And some of you are smiling because you know what the question is. If our religion says be desireless, have no desires, isn't that yearning for moksha desire in the first place? That is a desire. Okay. We have to define what desire is right here. A desire is something that benefits or bloats this ahankara, individuality. This body, this mind, this intellect is getting benefited in some way by something I acquired through desire. In this case, moksha, we went through what liberation is defined as. There is no more birth. There is complete eradication of this identity with body, mind, intellect. Where's the question of a personal desire here? Because the English language is limited, we have to use the word desire. But many of our great swamis in our mission, Sarveshananji included, that's where I got this thing of use yearning instead of desire. That tells us what it truly is. So mumukshutvam is not just a simple fascination for something for a little bit. It's not ephemeral. It is this burning yearning for desire. Have you ever burnt yourself when you were cooking? It's the worst feeling ever. Not that I cook well. I'm one of the few people that even Instapot burns me. I don't know how to handle it right, or I just underestimate how hard it is, but it really hurts. And then when that burn is there, the next 10 days, when you're taking a shower, also you have to hold it up like Statue of Liberty holds a torch. You have to hold it out like this so that the steam and the water doesn't affect it like that. So a burn like that, how quickly do you want to eradicate that? Where you just want it to cool down and be okay? Do I have that kind of yearning for liberation? If I don't, that's not a terrible thing. What can I do to really cultivate that? We find in this text as well. So, manushyatvam, mumukshutvam, mahapurusha samshayaha. That do I understand what the refuge of an illuminated sage, what does that mean? Do I understand the power of what a guru is in my life? There's so many people I meet, and it's wonderful to talk to them where they'll be elderly now. That's just the way it is. They say, I met Gurudev or I heard him speak. I'm always really fascinated by that. Where was it? Usually he came to my college in the 60s, or there was the grounds near my place, and I went there. Once a year he'd come, so I'd make sure to go there. I'd take my kids. Or there are people who are in their 30s and 40s that tell me, I have very hazy memories of him, but he gave me prasada when I was a kid, or he came to my school when I was a kid. these stories. There are other stories that are harder to hear, where people say he came every year, like 5 miles from my place. I never had the mindset of wanting to go listen to something like that, so I never got to see him. That is sad. Access is there, availability was there, ability to go see him, see such a great Mahatma is there, but the mindset just isn't there at that time. And those same people now, they kick themselves, saying, man, if only I had gone then, who knows what could have happened. And they're glad they've taken him as a guru now, but seeing that guru is something else totally different. Someone like me that was born so late, we had no chance, but for the people that did and missed it, I feel for them. That's really hard to see. So understanding what it means to be in that shadow of a guru, with that loving care and guidance, that's something that is irreplaceable to have in life. Now going forward, what we find. We have many jobs and many karmas to do. That's inevitable. There are so many responsibilities at our beck and call that we must take care of. Now, I asked this to the parents in the satsang today during Upadesha Sada. In a given day, how many karmas do you have to do that you enjoy doing versus how many karmas do you have to do that you don't enjoy doing? Which list is longer? Things that you don't like. And the funny part is, those things you don't like doing are wrapped up in what you have to do and what you are and what you love. What do I mean by that? We love our kids. We hate having to wake them up in the morning. Is that true for you guys? True as in I know you love your kids. Is it true that it's hard to wake them up in the morning, right? That part's true? Okay. And no, don't worry though. Once they get to be teenagers, it gets much easier, right? Oh no, I see. Parents of teenagers are laughing a lot now. I know. We love our kids. We hate to make them get up. We love our kids. We hate to have to make them eat what we want them to eat, the healthy stuff. That's also there. We love our kids. We hate to have them make them do their homework. All this is wrapped up in what we love being. The doing of that being is stuff that's really hard to do. That's most of our karmas. Now, those things we do enjoy doing, we feel we have never enough time to do that. That which we don't like to do is always persistent in our lives. All of that put to the side, those are all subsidiary things in life. Roles that I must take up for growth. At the end of the day, I have one job, that is to realize what this truth is for myself. That's it. Anything else I do facilitates that. Getting rid of my vasanas, eradicating these tendencies, all of that's important. That comes through all the roles that I have to do and all the nonsense that comes with it, all the pleasures that come with it. That's all on one side. All of that is to point at this one job of seeking that liberation. Is that in my mind at the end of the day? Or do I get bogged down by everything else and say, this is all I have going? Where we find ourselves to be rudderless when we don't have a clear goal in mind. Now, one question we have to ask ourselves daily: do I really want this liberation? How badly do I want it? There will be momentary inspiration, but I have to understand, am I willing to stick with what I have to do to get there? From the age of like 15 to 20, especially in this country, when it comes to what job do we want to take up in our lives, career-wise, we changed that about a dozen times in those 5 years. And that really freaks out our parents because we say from different, like something that's tech-related to I want to be a scientist to I want to be an actor. We change so much. It's fleeting. Whatever we find interesting, we want to go for that instantly. And people take it more seriously when they get to 15 to 20 at that time. When you say something, your parents take it a lot more seriously. Because when you're 5 or 7 or something, you say, I want to be a garbage man, mailman. Parents don't freak out when you say that. That's what you see. Your limited exposure. Mailman gets to wear that cool outfit, gets to meet people, put mail in the thing, and he gets to drive his own truck. I want to be a mailman. Now, from the age of 15 to 20, you're a lot more aware, so your words have weight at that point. Now, how quickly we abandon these different options and take on new options, saying, actually, I want to do this job or this career or that. Is liberation the same way? Is it a passing fad where at one point I say, yes, I want this, and then I say, no, I don't want it? That's why we have to revisit it often. Or else it'll be like the guy that says, I want to go to law school, I want to be a lawyer, says that for 7 years, then ends up becoming a brahmachari, right? That can happen. That can happen. So how much do I want to stick with this? That has to be revisited. And if that inspiration dips, for what purpose? Why is it dipping? That has to be addressed. Is it because I feel burnt out by having to be hyper vigilant about myself when I want to seek this liberation? Is it because the Siddhanta doesn't always make sense to me, and that which I accepted so freely before, I have some doubts on now as I go through? Is it that I have a lack of confidence in myself to take these steps? Manushutvam, mumukshutvam, that sounds great to say, but actually taking advantage, do I feel it's not in the cards for me? I don't have that ability to do it. Samarthya may not be there in my own mind. What is it? So understanding there is one final goal, only one goal at the end of the day. What am I willing to do to get there? And it's okay if the inspiration dips. How do I get back on that horse? So what's the shloka that we go to now to understand this better? The 5th shloka. Ita konvasti mudhatma yastu svārthe pramadhyati durlabham manusham deham prapya tatrapi paurusham. I'm a big fan of rap music. So one feature of rap music in the 80s and 90s was something popular called a diss track. A diss track is when diss comes from disrespect, you like insult another rapper, and then that guy responds to you with his album. Then you respond to him with your own album, some more insults, and before you know it, you have a fan following, and both of you have made lots of money from your albums. It's awesome. Somewhere along the way, like when I was growing up, rap music became way too civilized. People started complimenting each other and everything. But in the last 2 years, we've gotten back to our roots and we're insulting people again. Kendrick and Drake, ask your kids if you don't know. They'll know. They're their teams and everything. I'm Team Kendrick, by the way, in case no one asked, but I wanted to tell you anyway. If Bhagavan Shri Adi Shankaracharya were to release a diss track, and he did, Bhaja Govindam was a diss track to people that don't live the right way. His favorite word to diss people is mudha. Mudha means fool. And it can be embellished even more. That's the beauty of Sanskritam. Mudhatma is like a parama fool. Not only are you a fool, your very nature is one of foolishness. It's beautiful to see. So what is he saying here? Who is a fool? There is no greater fool than that person who has this birth, has the courage, has smartness in the head, has compassion in the heart, and doesn't use those powers to seek this liberation. Goes after something else, using it for something else. Because certain qualities people want universally. You know, we say criminals are people that are not honest. They don't have value systems. It's not true. Even a mafia don wants honest people around him. Right? I met a man one time. This was a big thing in India a while ago, okay? In the 90s or so. When people would visit, you'd want to get the best exchange rate. Sometimes the banks wouldn't give you the best exchange rate, so on the side, meeting at train stations or stuff, you'd go there, and then you'd give them the currency, and they'd give it to you in rupees. You have to give them a cut of it, but they'll give you a really good exchange rate. Someone was telling me their experience with this. They were students at the time, so they went to India like this, went to a train station, they're exchanging the money. And this guy, he's counting all the money to make sure it's a criminal enterprise, to make sure the criminal gave him all the right money. The guy's observing him, and he says, Danda imandar hisab is what he tells him. Meaning, this whole racket is honest, don't worry. When a criminal tells you, no, I'm honest like that, that's a really funny thing to see. So, like that, qualities like honesty, qualities like discretion, everyone wants these in the people they work with, even if you're a criminal, doing something wrong. Like that, if someone has intelligence, everyone wants that. Everyone wants people around them that are intelligent. We all want people around us with compassion and great ways of working. But then, you see, that can go awry and we can use it for something else. Not always liberation. I can use that for anything else. This shows that commitment to this path that anyone will have. It's like I tell you, when I went to the bookstore in Mumbai before I came back to America, whole bookshelf on Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita to be a millionaire, Bhagavad Gita for starting a business, Bhagavad Gita for parenting, Bhagavad Gita for marriage, Bhagavad Gita for divorce, and they're both right next to each other. That was weird. All of that's there. And I was like, man, if Bhagavad Gita makes you a millionaire, why did I become a brahmachari? Like, I was thinking that at that moment right there. Where these are all subsidiary effects, but having the arsenal of Shastra and everything with me, what am I aiming it at? If it's not liberation, it's something else. I'm doing myself a disservice. I'm doing the Shastra a disservice. That the human birth is the only birth I have a chance to get this liberation. This is that final frontier. This is it. And so, it's not that Bhagavan Shri Adi Shankaracharya here says that I'm misguided if I don't take advantage. He doesn't say that I'm distracted. He doesn't say that I have lapse in judgment. He goes ahead and says I'm a stupid fool. That's meant to see intelligence is not merely a knowingness in doing things that can benefit me. Intelligence is, do I holistically see what that ultimate goal is? Do I abide and go after it? True intelligence is indicated right here. Then once that intelligence is maintained, once I say I am firmly on this path to improve myself according to what Shastra says, I must verily wave that white flag of surrender. That has to be there. Because unless this ego is put in check, unless I understand fully that if I'm to let go of this false identity, that process starts right now, there will be no progress for me as a seeker. And surrender does not mean I'm a doormat. Surrender means those notions that I've held for so long, I have to understand that they will change and they should change. I have to understand that those misconceptions I've had for so long, just because I believe something doesn't make it true, what is that grounded in? Now, the surrender is so important because, from a Shastra standpoint, Shastra will tell me that I am not this body that I think I am. That which I perceive I take to be true. Everything I perceive is actually false. Shastra will tell me that those goals that I have, thinking that makes me happy, these are all ephemeral joys that have no permanence to them. None of this will give me any long-term happiness ever. These are all misconceptions. The glass shatters every single time. And the person that gets me to understand this is the Guru. The most important person in my life. Because I won't listen to Shastra unless there's a living, breathing person telling me all of this. There is no way I will assimilate it in my life. Now, if I am to learn from that Guru, surrender is needed. I'll be told to do things that go against what my, common sense wants to say. There will be things that I'm told that will go against what my likes are. But without surrender, there's no way to grow. So that trust is imperative there. You ever watch like a NASCAR or F1 race? They have all these headsets. The drivers have headsets and they're listening to things. Because sitting in that car, you can't see much. You only see what's in front of you. Up in the tower, there'll be the people giving them instructions. Every now and then, if there's a crash or there's a lot of smoke, you can't see anything in front of you. And when you're going 200 miles an hour, the guy in your earpiece in the tower says, go through the smoke. There's no car on the other side. You'll be fine. How much trust do you have to have in that guy to actually go through that smoke right there? At 200 miles an hour, you hit another car, you're done. It's Govinda. There's no hospital. It's just straight to Govinda at that point. How much trust do you... And people have gone like that on the racetracks as well. Dale Earnhardt, 2001, that's how he went. How much trust do you have to have in that guy? It's life and death. When it comes to my liberation, similarly, if I'm going to dedicate my entire life to one cause and one cause only, how much trust do I need to have in that guru then? If that trust is not there, there will be no surrender. If that surrender is not there, there will be no annihilation of this ego. These dominoes have to fall one by one. And again, surrender does not mean that I completely leave any kind of like or talent or anything in my life. Surrender simply means, am I willing to put aside what my notions are to take in what's new? And we find in today's day and age, there is a total death of nuance in the world today. One of my favorite things to do is I have a subscription to newspapers.com. Has newspapers from the 1700s till today. So you go in and until about 1980s or 1990s, you go in and you look at the editorials for a newspaper. They'd go about 3 or 4 pages. This is way before social media, so naturally they'd go about 3 or 4 pages. They'd present a holistic view with observations and data and statistics, and then they present an opinion. One that was not intended just for rage bait or to trigger someone or clickbait or anything like that, but meant to actually inform. To teach people that this is what the issue is, this is why it's important, this is why our editorial team is taking the decision to endorse this certain view or this certain candidate, or we think this is the best way to go about things. Even if you didn't agree with that editorial, at least you learned something, and you were able to see things from a different perspective, which sometimes can embolden your own view by giving you fuel to base your ideas on. Now, years from there, looking today, editorials for a newspaper are probably 3 paragraphs long, generated by AI. You don't learn anything. There's no nuance. Everything is black and white. Comes to the media today, everything is black and white. There's no nuance at all in anything. Look at the last 10 days. A political assassination happens. There is no room for a nuanced opinion of, I'm sad for the individual's wife and kids. At the same time, I may not agree with everything he said. There's no room for nuance. Either people have to celebrate the death of a person, or he died for our sins and now he's our Lord and Savior. Middle ground in anything seems to be intolerable. Now, that's fine in some areas of life. What if that makes its way into religion then? Where I want a black and white answer to everything from Hinduism, I don't want to have to do any work of exploring myself and finding nuance. I find myself in a terrible position then. Surrender means, do I have the courage and the patience to actually go through and find what is unsaid, experience that for myself, go through trial and error, understanding where that nuance is. If you look at our Nyaya system, the darshanas, they've created the most beautiful form of logic. Some words that may sound familiar to you, vada, samvada, jalpa, vitanda, these are all logical fallacies that are there. Repeating yourself in an argument, logical fallacy. Providing only a narrow view of something and not holistically, logical fallacy. It's meant for thinking, not simply dogmatic expression. Hinduism is the only religion in the world that is based on finding an objective truth, not simply professing one person's experiences and calling that a truth, not simply spreading dogma for the use of controlling over a people. Hinduism is the only religion that does not do that. We are after an objective truth here. Simply believing in something and having faith is not what liberation is. Simply having darshan of that Ishvara is not liberation either. That is an aid and a facilitation to get to that final truth of what I am. Even when Bhagavan Mahavishnu appears, or whether it's Prahlada or Dhruva Maharaj, they had darshan of Bhagavan. He tells them, now that you've had my darshan, your mind is purified. Learn this final knowledge so that you're liberated. Bhagavan himself says that there. Heck, Arjuna had Bhagavan's And not just, Virata Rupa and everything, he had his regular darshan his entire life. He still needed this knowledge as well. That only comes through surrender. Now, where do we see that in Vivekachudamani? Shloka number 8. Ato vimuktयै prayateta vidvan sanyastabahyaर्थसुखस्पृहस्सन् santam mahantam samupetya deshikam tenopadishtar basamahitatma. When it comes to seeking this liberation, then must approach the master and renounce all of this fascination for external objects. Samupetya, duly approached. Meaning that approach must be with complete humility. Never with this idea of, what can you teach me? Now, there is today a healthy skepticism of anyone professing to teach this knowledge. Which is why, in Hinduism, sampradaya is so important. The first question they ask you when you're in Rishikesh or anywhere where there's a lot of sannyasis, sadhu mahatmas and everything, and you present yourself, hey, I'm a young brahmachari. First question they ask is, who is your guru? And I'm blessed that when I say, Puja Gurudev Swami Chinmayananji, I'm Chinmaya Mission Brahmachari, they have such a reverence. Not because I've done anything, I'm nobody, because of who my guru is. Or the guru is everything at that point. The reason I eat every day as a brahmachari is Gurudev's name. The reason why there are people that come to my classes, Gurudev's name. Nothing besides that. We're tapasya of the guru, what they've believed in, how they've selflessly propagated, that is something that has so many residual effects. Inspiration of the people, driving a vision across, that's one thing. But can you imagine, just by association with that guru, someone getting respect? How many people are there in the world like that can have that kind of effect on someone? So we are incredibly lucky to have that. Now, what I'd say here, especially given it's a teacher's satsang, is one thing I find concerning in the way we conduct ourselves today is we are not so much in tune today with Puja Gurudev's written works. That has to change. Where especially as Balvihar teachers, no matter which grade we teach, we should be well versed in what his writings are. It should be our daily sadhana, yes, daily sadhana, to read little by little of what he's written. That's where we find his vision truly in effect. And I'll tell you why. I'll give you 2 reasons why. First reason. Given that this knowledge is so esoteric, meaning it is very confined to a certain subject matter, it's easy to get confused in these spiritual thoughts. Sometimes we can say Hinduism as a whole says this. Sometimes Advaita Vedanta says something specific. And Puja Gurudev's interpretations of various texts make them relevant to us at every single level. There are some people like to read translations of Sanskritam texts. And they say, yeah, this isn't really relevant to me. Yes, that's because you and I don't have that thinking capacity to actually understand that. It has to come from a master's works. A master, we're lucky enough, writes in the English language, which for all of us here, we may speak different languages and have comfort with various languages. The only academic language we're most comfortable with is the English language. That's what he wrote in. We think in English, many of us. English is our academic language. That's our spiritual language as well, when it comes to studying from our perspective. So one reason is we understand that nuance that's missing in our lives. Second reason is, unless we go through his works, we don't understand his vision, and we co-opt his vision to the wrong things. Why am I saying this? January of 2023, I believe, when the Prana Pratishtapana of Ayodhya was happening. I was talking about it in our assemblies and during our parent satsang. I told the whole history. Babri Masjid, what happened, how there's a temple originally that was broken down in favor of a mosque, all these things. And people sometimes get uncomfortable with this. I still understand why. It's like if Brahmachari talks about history, it's like, oh, you're deviating or whatever. And so one parent stood up. I admire them for being open with me, at least. That's all I require. I never require you guys to agree with me in things. At least be open with me. And the parent said, I don't understand why you're going into all this. I said, okay, explain why. What do you mean? They said, all of this stuff, it only spreads division when you talk about what happens in history and what the Hindus have gone through. Furthermore, this is not the vision of Chinmaya Mission. That's when I was like, I got you right there. Sit back down. What do you mean this is not the vision of Chinmaya Mission? If you've read As I Think by Puja Gurudev, he says this is exactly what's needed. We have to know what the Hindu people went through, or else we are rudderless with nothing to hold on to. And as history repeats itself constantly, we will just sit there on the sidelines saying we don't know what to do. So co-opting his vision into passiveness, co-opting his vision into whatever political fad is in fashion today, that was not Puja Gurudev's vision. Without reading his expansive works, with all the nuance and details, how are we to know that then? Now, his compendium, he has 95 commentaries and essay collections that are published by the mission. Each of them so deep in so many ways. Where if we truly are to hold on to that Guru's vision, we need to really imbibe that vision. And that comes through Gurudev's works. So I want my teachers to be the first ones to take advantage of this. Starting this Friday, I'll be releasing a weekly playlist called Reading Gurudev. In Reading Gurudev, I'll take up a chunk of a Gita section. I'll take up an essay. How do we read his works? What kind of structure does he give us? What does he do to connect sometimes cryptic words of a shloka or a mantra and make it relevant to us? How do we read between the lines to come up with questions for ourselves? When reading a larger text by Gurudev, how do we navigate our way backwards and forwards to understand a full structure based on what he's saying? Now, that's awesome because I did an experiment. During COVID time, I had so much time to read through his works and make connections and all of this. Because I'd read one book at the time called Gita for a Global World, where the main thesis by that professor that was asked was, it was going into why, looking at Bhagavad Gita, is it relevant to the modern person today? With our world so globalized and so many ideas out there, is this set of ideas still valid today was the question, which is something natural to come up. Now, this author's conclusions, and he cites Gita in the worst ways, there is no possibility of nishkama karma, selfishless action, because everything is selfish, there's no altruism in the world. Or this entire Varna system is meant to control people. The very fact that Bhagavan Krishna mentions it means it's wrong. He says, I refuse to look at this is a Hindu professor, I refuse to look at Bhagavad Gita as a religious text. Because if you look at it as a religious text, the only conclusion is God made things a certain way, there's no logic. So nonsense like this. I was thinking, man, if our chicks, or even you guys, were to read this book and take it as truth, how would I give the truth about Hinduism? How would I express myself? I went through Puja Gurudev's commentary, found the relevant chunks. This book by this professor was written in 2021. Gurudev's commentary written in the 50s, it was as if Gurudev had read this book and come up with responses. I was able to lift parts of his commentary and put it right next to these. It was as if it was answering that. Every objection that this guy had, Gurudev came up with those same objections in his Gita commentary. How can you say selfless action? Everything is word per word, man. I felt like sending that Professor Gurudev's Gita and saying, dude, if you read this, you wouldn't have to write that stupid book in the first place. So his writing is so organic. It meets us where we are so many years later. Give me another author that has that kind of organic power in their writing. It is amazing to see. So duly approaching the master now means how much do I imbibe their work and make it my own in my own mind. So inspiring sometimes. I meet Swamis in our mission. Mitrananji comes to mind. Advayananji comes to mind. At the drop of a hat, they can quote entire paragraphs of Gurudev's work. And it's not some fake Guru Bhakti of sitting there and memorizing it. They've gone through that so many times, internalized it to such a level that it's like how you and me hear a song on the radio, we know the words. They know the words to like that by heart. Because it's not just understood, it's lived by them. Power of his work right there. Now, what do we find is the call to action here then? Ever ready to fight against all low tendencies and false values? I think I said that sometime today. Oh yeah, 2 times I said it today with my hand on my heart. That is a part of our pledge. All low tendencies and false values. Eradicating that is the call to action that we have. Merely understanding what this knowledge is not enough. What am I doing with that? Now, what does this phrase even mean then? Fighting, we know. Oh, tendencies is spelled wrong. I'm so sorry. I will fix that later. Oh, gosh, I look like a dummy in front of you guys, don't I? You already knew that, but now other people know it too. Okay, tendencies is spelled wrong. I'm so sorry. Tendency X in false values. Okay. A low tendency is pretty easy to understand. It is that which we are a slave to, some kind of action, and it's not conducive to our growth. It hinders our growth, puts us in the other direction, yet we still do it because we feel comfortable with it. Low tendency. What's a false value? False value is taking something that is tamasic or basic, actually nefarious, and hurts me, yet I hold it in high regard. With the low tendency, I know it's wrong, but I still do it. As if that's not bad enough, a false value is even worse. I make my vices look like virtues then. I make my vices look like virtues. Early on in Balvihar, this was when I was in like 3rd grade, the fire alarm went off and we all had to go outside. And it was really awful because it was like, I don't know why, that day it was like 25 degrees outside and we all had to stand outside. It turns out one of the kids pulled the fire. It wasn't me, but one of the kids pulled the fire alarm. And they brought that kid's parents in. They were talking to him. And these were the kind of parents that, they're the parents that refuse to believe their kids did anything wrong. Like, they'll defend them to no end, like defense attorneys. And so the parents' argument was, he was just curious. You can't get mad at my kid. And admin was like, dude, your kid's 8 years old. Like, you gotta know, if it says fire alarm, that means it's gonna do something when you pull it. So even a bad action then is turned into a value of, man, look how curious my kid is. It's amazing. So I know it's a humorous example, but in life also, those tendencies like anger, we make it look good, saying, yeah, see how effective my anger is? I yell and then 10 people do what I ask them to do. Those false values would come about. So what does Vivekachudamani have to say about this? Sanyasya sarvakarmani bhavabandha vimuktaye yatyatam panditair atmabhyasa upasthitaihi. Those selfish actions that I have, they keep me away from any kind of growth. Bhavabandha vimuktaye. If I want to get liberated from all these bonds, effort has to be there. Yatyatam. And furthermore, there has to be this discovery of what the self is, and that means giving up all this desire-ridden action. Low tendencies and false values, the trigger to make that happen is nothing but following my own desires at all times. Now, with age, we know more, we understand more. Naturally, then, shouldn't our desires become more purified as we get older? Our thinking gets sharper and clearer. Our understanding of our own strengths and weaknesses becomes much clearer to us. Our navigation of the world and knowing how to deal with various situations also is a lot more simplified. Given all of that logic, Isn't it but natural that my desires are also purified as I get older? The truth is, the world around me changes. I don't change as much. When I'm a little kid, I desire Hot Wheels cars. When I'm an adult, I desire giant Hot Wheels cars that I can sit in and drive myself. The things we desire may get more sophisticated and refined. The very nature that I have of enjoying these things for my own pleasure, that does not change. Therefore, getting over those desires is that very first step then. Without that, there's no freedom from this bondage of birth and death and birth and death and birth and death. Now, again, that comes from reliance on the Shastra, implicit following of what the Guru says as well, their recommendations. Now, at this point that we've seen all of this, and I tried to make you fall asleep, you all stayed awake till now. Kudos. After all of this, we can say finally, we've entered what Vivekachudamani has to say. Unless I believe I am bound and I must be liberated, I cannot call myself a Vedantin. Unless I stop blaming externalities for my problems, I look in the mirror and say, my actions are what caused where I am right now, I am not a Vedantin. Unless I have that courage to look within myself, humility to surrender to Shastra and the Guru, and that awareness to see how I'm improving and how to do that, I cannot say I'm a Vedantin. Coming to all of that, we can say, welcome now to Vivekachudamani. Chittasya shuddhaye karma, natu vastu palabdhaye, vastu siddhir vicharena, nakinchit karma kotibihi. We have a fascination with karma, action. Action does not net me realization. Purifies this inner instrument, does not net me realization, however. That is by self-inquiry, vichara, and the goal of vichara is viveka, discriminative capacity of what's real and unreal. That is the entire point of this beautiful grantha that we're going to study. So again, actions are necessary. They have their purpose, however. We'll elaborate more on that as we go through the text. Now, finally, what do we see? We are lucky to be at a place where we can actually take advantage of this knowledge. The fact that we have the time, we have the Guru and Puja Gurudev, we have the ability to prioritize things in our life and say, this vichara is a priority. We've gone through millions of lives to get to this point right here. In Panchadashi, Vidyaranya Swamiji says, bondage can be seen as lack of thinking. Even coming to this knowledge and saying that I value this is a kind of liberation, because you're on your way to liberation the moment you say that. Now, when it comes to understanding the significance of this moksha, we find that qualifications matter so much. Adhikarina mashaste phalasiddhir visheshatah upaya deshakaladhyah santyasmin sahakarinah. Upaya means method of growth. When I was in the course, I had a terrible cold. My flu lasted for 2 months. Have you ever had a flu that lasted 2 months? I did. It was good for weight loss. I never looked better, but I was sick all the time. Like runny nose for 2 months. It was awful. And so brahmacharis are so kind. Every week, a different brahmachari would give me a different medicine to take, saying this will cure it. Because they'd never seen that either, a specimen that's sick for 2 months like that. They were like, yeah, American body, I guess that's what it's like, but I don't know. So everyone of them was so confident when they give it. And one guy gave me medicine. I said, dude, you're the fourth guy. I don't think it's going to work. He said, Nai bhai, this is Ram Barn Upaya, is what he said. Bhagwan Ramji, when he releases an arrow, there's no way it misses. So Ram Barn Upaya is it's a cure, some kind of ilaj that no matter what, it will work. He had that confidence. Spoiler, his medicine didn't work either. But upaya has to be something like that. We have to have that much confidence that these means will net me the result that I want. that is given in this text as well. Now, we can blame things like desha, kala, and say, my time isn't right. That's why I'm not succeeding. That may work for other things. For knowledge, however, and we'll discuss two terms later, next time. Vastu Tantra, Purusha Tantra, we'll talk about that next time. What we need to know for now is this knowledge coming to me is within my hands. I have full control over that. I just have to make the right means to make that happen. Everything else, sahakarinaha. Sahakarinaha, things that are secondary, auxiliary. These are just things that are part of the sideshow that I have. Main character in my life is that knowledge to seek that moksha. The rest of everything else, my profession, things holding me back, lack of confidence. These are all junior artists. That's it. They have no real screen time in the grand scheme of things. So then what are these qualifications here that are needed? That's what everything matters and depends on. What is the essential student then? As Bhavihar teachers, what's your essential Bhavihar student? The kid that comes into class with a smile on their face. So again, it's already narrowed down your population here. Those that sit straight and not lay down like they're, on a bed or something in class. Plus, they ask questions that actually matter. They listen when you're talking. Then when it's time to work, they do that. And for those of you in middle school and high school teaching that, when you ask a question, they don't just blankly stare at you like you're speaking a foreign language. They actually respond to you. And for those of you teaching little kids, they actually sit on the floor for more than 10 seconds at a time, not jumping around and everything, getting distracted, asking when does class end. Essential student. How many of those do we have then? Few and far in between. It's cultivated as we go. What we have to ask ourselves is, am I an essential student to study Vedanta? Manushyatvam, mumukshutvam, all of these different qualities. That's what makes me essential. Now, the last shloka we look at today really brings that to life here. This is one of my favorite shlokas in the text. Medhavi purusho vidvan uhapoha vichakshanaha adhikaryatma vidyayam ukta lakshana lakshitaha. Medhavi, one who has great memory. This doesn't mean I've memorized entire Gita, let me chant. That's not what that means. One with a great memory is, does the right knowledge come to me at the right time? In moments of anger on the road, with road rage, I use 4-letter words out there, not Rama, not the other 4-letter words, I show them different mudras and I yell 4-letter words. After that, when I get home, I say, I shouldn't do that, Gurudev's commentary said, don't be so mad all the time. When does the knowledge come in? Is it at that moment that I need it to, or do I keep regretting action again and again? Medhavi, acute memory. Now, this is the part. Purushaha, a man. So if I'm a woman, I can't get this? No. It's just an archetype. It's like even if I walk up to a group of girls, I say, hey guys, what's up? That's just how I speak. Shastra speaks the same way. It's just an archetype, a man. That's all it is. It means a person. No need to get offended about that. Beautiful quality here. Uha pohavi chakshanaha. Ability to argue both sides of an argument. Why? How can I stand for a certain viewpoint if I don't fully understand, again, nuance, that's my word of the day. If I don't know the nuances and where the other side's coming from or what other objections can come up, I will fall for anything. Do you believe that you're not the body? Give me a thumbs up or a nod, just so I know that. Do you believe you are not the body? You function through this all the time. Give me a time where you're not this body. You function through it all the time. Oh, when I'm sleeping. You don't know that, though, at the time. How can you tell me you're not something when you haven't experienced what that other thing is? If I can't argue against this, how do I stay convinced of this fact? I can be converted to something else at this point. How much can I argue? Not for the sake of polemics or for proving someone wrong or anything like that. No. How can I argue these points in my own head right here when these objections arise? Vidvan. Vidvan Puja Gurudev, in his Vivekachudamani commentary, he says very clearly, Vidvan does not mean one who's just learned. It's one who has a good knowledge of the world, of worldly matters. When Puja Gurudev would teach the Vedanta course, if he caught a brahmachari in the course reading a newspaper, he would become enraged. He'd say, this is all worldly stuff. You're here to study about the truth. Why are you distracting yourself with this trash? Politics, world events, this, that. Why? That same Gurudev, if he met a brahmachari who was in yellow serving in the field, he would ask them, do you read the newspaper every day? If they said no, he would blast them, saying, you are here serving the people whose minds are completely worldly. If you don't know anything about their world and what they're consuming, what right do you have to say, I understand what you're going through and I want to teach you? See his intention right here? In the first case, it's a distraction, therefore stay away from it. And the other one is, if you are to do this missionary work effectively, you must know what's going on. You must have a worldly sense. So even the high school lock-in we had 2 days ago, we had a Q&A. So kids are like, oh, you watch movies? Oh my God, you watch sports? Oh my God, you read about this kind of stuff? They were so scandalized. And I was like, why am I offending you here? What's wrong? They're like, oh, we thought that meant you're always only studying this stuff. This stuff is the world at the end of the day. Without understanding of the world, why do I understand this stuff, the Vedanta they're talking about? How do I understand this without understanding the world around me? We have to. So, things that we all need to understand to build our emotional quotient, to build what we call lokajnana, understanding of how the world works, which you would call street smarts. And you say, oh, you American kids don't have it. We have from India all these things. That comes from experiences and understanding the world around us. Without that, there is no real facilitation of growth within Vedanta. So I know we went through a lot today. This is a great set of shlokas that we went through. And I also know that there was no discussion today. I apologize for that. I wanted to get through a lot in one sitting, just so we could go through all of this. I'm putting it up to YouTube. So I know some of you said, dude, you're moving way too fast. I did 7 shlokas today. It will be on YouTube. So if you're super bored, you can always check that out. Now, this next weekend, you will have the special topic to teach. Okay? So the way it's going to go for kindergarten to about 2nd grade, the video that I'll give you will be about 30 minutes. So plan something for the last 30 minutes of class, but for their attention span, it'll have, discussion points and stuff in there. About 30 minutes, kindergarten to 2nd grade. 3rd to 5th grade, I'll make it a little bit longer. 45 minutes or so. 6th grade all the way till 12th grade. 6th through 8th grade will be one type of video. 9th through 12th will be the other video. That will take the full time. Okay? Now, what I want to focus on in this civilizational topic is looking at Puja Gurudev's work. We often read, whether it's in Journey of a Master, whether Puja Guruji's Kritagnyata, dedicated to Puja Gurudev, seeing the decline of Bharata, Gurudev set out on his work, is what we see. What does that decline mean? What are we actually saying as decline of Bharata that inspired Gurudev to work? So when it comes to the kindergarten to 2nd grade, 3rd to 5th grade, my focus will be more on looking at a community. What do you want a community to be? You and your friends, families together. What is a community that upholds the values that we learn here? We say always be honest, but then we run red lights. They see parents doing all of this. What does it mean to actually live these values in a community? That's, kindergarten to 5th grade, that will be my focus. What I want to show our 6th to 12th graders is a bit more nuanced. Looking at this actual decline of Bharata, a case study we'll look at of 3 different states: Kerala, Kashmir, Bengal. All 3 of these states at one point had the apex of Hindu culture. The acharyas that came from there. the innovation that was there, the temples that were there. By the time Gurudev's work started in all three of these locations, Hinduism hit a low. Now, there's many reasons for this. We'll go through those reasons. Not for the purpose of rehashing some history and because I have to do a civilizational topic, but two things to understand from here. What was Gurudev's vision of what he wanted to do? What's that inspiration? That brings us closer to the Guru. Second part of this is to see very clearly this kind of decline was not confined to one or two places. Kashmir is way up in the north. Kerala is way down in the south. Bengal is way in the east. It affected all three of these places, meaning there was a decline in Bharata, which one thing going around now is that's been exaggerated. It's not been exaggerated. Look at the acharyas that came from Kerala. Our own Gurudev, Tapovanji Maharaj, Shivanandji, Bhagavan Shri Adi Shankaracharya Ji. Those stalwarts came from that jewel of India. It declined. Look at Kashmir. Abhinava Gupta Ji in his Kashmiri Shaivism came from there. Martanda temple was a beautiful temple there. Another temple was the temple where Parvati Devi had the young boy stand outside, and he later became Bhagavan Ganeshji. That temple was right there in Kashmir. Look what happened there. Bengal. Whether in more recent times, Sri Aurobindo, Rabindranath Tagore, all these people, Vivekananda Ji, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa Ji, even before that, there was a Bengal Renaissance. So many things happened there. Decline again. So we'll go through that. It'll be eye-opening in that way. Look out for the video by Thursday evening, okay? By Thursday evening in the All Teacher Savings group, it'll be there. Sorry for taking 3 extra minutes, just wanted to explain that, but thank you for your service. Have a great week ahead, everybody. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Thank you, everybody. Hari Om.